his own little special comedian because I always make him laugh when I tell him my plans because his plans are always different than mine. And somehow this little Midwestern girl who was raised there and then was hosting a radio show in Birmingham, Alabama, ends up smack dab in the middle of California chaos. And so I witnessed these crazy things on a daily basis. The first time I knew it was really crazy. Well, you got the whole bathroom thing. You can go whatever bathroom you want to go in. I know you've heard all about this on all the great shows you listen to here on AFR Talk, but you can pick whatever bathroom you want to go into if you go to Los Angeles Unified School District, and if you're a hormonal teenage boy and you all of a sudden are feeling like a woman tonight, you can just walk on in that girl's restroom, and that little girl, your 15-year-old teenage daughter, has no rights to do a darn thing about that. So in walks the boy or the transvestite or the whatever it wants to be, and gets to follow your daughter in there, and whatever privacy of hers is infringed is not a concern. Then I knew it was even crazier when I think I shared with you the last time I hosted for Brian that if you spy on your neighbors in West Hollywood, again, you can't make this stuff up. If you spy on your neighbors and you tell the thought police that your neighbor has a fire in their fireplace, then you are rewarded for that. Financially rewarded. I believe it's like dinners out and things like that are solicited from environmentalist business owners, green businesses, give all these awards, and they voluntarily give them to people who are willing to snitch on their neighbors for putting a fire in their fireplace. Fire in your fireplace. Your neighbors are watching. Well, that might only be outdone by a California city that has decided to ban opposition newspapers on public property. And this weekend, I was honored to get to keynote an event that had a bunch of citizen activists in Orange County, California, and they decided they were going to have a rally talking about public awareness and expressing their outrage over what they characterize as an attack on their First Amendment rights. The city council, this is what happened, of San Juan Capistrano, they shocked local journalists when it voted behind closed doors to ban newspaper racks on city property. The racks had been in place for at least 10 years. I'm not kidding you. When I tell you this stuff, I start feeling like I am fabricating it because it sounds so crazy and so outlandish that I keep having to check in my brain that this is really happening. It's really happening. The council action came 4 days after one publication called Community Common Sense, often critical of the council majority, placed their news rack along others at City Hall and in the community center. The council moved swiftly in response by banning all newspaper racks. So there was a councilman, Derek Reeve, who's also a constitutional law attorney, and we interviewed him, and he said that even a first-year law student, for crying out loud, knows that you don't ban newspapers on government property. He himself said he didn't understand why the city attorney, for example, didn't speak up. The council members were driven away. There's no logical explanation for this. Well, Community Common Sense filed suit to restore the news racks to the city property. The city's attorney used an unbelievable tactic. This is truly an unbelievable tactic. I'm oddly familiar with this tactic to counter-sue the Community Common Sense. The city filed an anti-SLAPP. Now, if you're not familiar with the term SLAPP, that stands for Strategic Litigation Against Public Participation. Strategic litigation against public participation. They filed an anti-SLAPP motion claiming that CCS was violating the rights of the council. How do you violate? Oh, yeah. So to get the full story on this, my next guest is part of this whole thing and knows it firsthand. Her name is Kim Lefler, and she's the editor of said Community Common Sense in San Juan Capistrano, California. Welcome to Focal Point, Kim Lefler. Good to have you. And I'm not hearing Kim. Okay, I'm not hearing Kim, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish telling you a little bit about this. This is what happened. So this anti-SLAPP suit, now they were originally formulated, and the reason I know this is because, as I told you, I am married to a former state senator who actually wrote legislation in Missouri that was one of the models that led to this original piece of SLAPP legislation against, meaning strategic litigation against public participation. They exist to prevent abuse of legal processes where plaintiffs slap defendants by suing them with a goal of not winning the lawsuit, but rather silencing free speech of citizens and warning others not to cross the plaintiff. By filing the anti-SLAPP action, the city is claiming that the lawsuit brought by CCS is frivolous and that it is only attempt to intimidate and stifle free speech rights of the elected officials. In other words, they used a piece of law that was set up to protect people from frivolous lawsuits to basically establish a frivolous lawsuit against citizens and against free speech. So Kim Lefler, we're going to get her on our show here in a minute, the editor of Community of Common Sense, told me that the anti-SLAPP suit, of course, is ridiculous. The city council is essentially trying to make the case, get this, that it has a First Amendment right to deny us our First Amendment rights. It's laughable. And Kim as much as said that. While city officials are claiming that CCS slapped them by filing a meritless case, CCS has already won their initial hearing as a judge ordered the city to allow the newspaper vending machines again. A number of states, including California, have passed SLAPP laws. So this is the thing about California. You always know this, right? No matter where you are listening from, whatever's happening in California is coming soon to your own city. So this is why we have to be very, very, very aware of this. So with us to tell us more about this from a citizen's perspective, she is the editor of Community Common Sense in San Juan Capistrano. We're going to try this one more time. Kim Lefler.
Hi, Dr. Gina. I'm here.
There you are. Awesome. Yes. I don't know if you've gotten to hear any that I had to say, trying to lay out the audacity of what has happened to you in San Juan Capistrano. But do tell us from your perspective why this is, as you quoted, laughable.
Well, they say truth is stranger than fiction, and in our case, that's certainly true. We are a watchdog newspaper. We've been publishing for about 4 years in our local community of San Juan Capistrano, and we report on council actions, largely on city government issues. Mm-hmm. So we report based on Public Records Act requests for information and extensive research that we do. Well, the council majority don't like what we print. They have a bad habit of going behind closed doors to enact ordinances and so forth. And we have, through our research, we've exposed many of the, many of the actions that they've taken that have negatively impacted the residents here in San Juan. So they don't like us. The city has allowed news racks outside the City Hall and Community Center for, 20 years at City Hall and 10 years at the Community Center, because it was only built 10 years ago. So we put our news rack alongside others that had existed there for years. And within 4 days of doing it, the City Council called a closed-door meeting, and they voted to ban newspapers. Now, at the time, we weren't aware that they had voted to ban us. We didn't find out until we got a letter from the city attorney ordering us to remove our news rack. When we questioned why, all we were told was that we didn't have permission to place it there. Well, we responded back and said, well, excuse us, but it's our First Amendment right to have our newspaper, to disseminate it on public property. And the city attorney responded with yet another reason supposedly for banning the news racks, and that was that he was trying to enforce an anti-littering ordinance, which we thought was pretty ridiculous. But what he failed to omit was that there's an exception for newspapers. So we responded back and let him know that, and then the final letter we got from him just said, essentially, you are prohibited from placing your paper anywhere on any city property, and it was under threat of civil and criminal prosecution at this point. He invoked the name of the sheriff's department here and said there's no mistake on the part of the sheriff's department or city employees that you are prohibited from this, and there will be consequences. So at that point, we decided to, through an attorney, we filed for a temporary restraining order in Orange County Superior Court, And fortunately, the judge saw it our way and said, when he granted the TRO, he said, let me be clear. He said the people will have the right to read and access their papers on public property. So where we're at with it now is that,
because you really have to wonder, did they think they were going to get away with this? Have they gotten away with this sort of suppression of free speech before? Or where did this sort of audacity come from initially?
years and years of them operating with impunity in town here. It's one of the reasons that we started this watchdog publication 4 years ago, is that we have a council majority that is, in my opinion, out of control. They vote to benefit special interests who contribute to their campaigns, and they do not, in my opinion, do what's right for the majority of the residents here, the average Joe citizen here. So we started this watchdog paper, and when we started exposing their actions, including, who was benefiting from their actions, the votes that they took, that's when they started retaliating against us. So there's actually been a history of this retaliation. It finally culminated in the actual ban of the newspaper. But they had retaliated against us before. The city employees would throw out stacks of our newspapers that we placed at the community center. Other newspapers were left alone. They were left on the reading tables and so on. Ours were thrown away. When we told them not to do it, they said, well, it's trash and that's where it belongs, so it's going in the trash can. That kind of stuff. They call our advertisers and they pressure them into not advertising. It's just been a long string of retaliation.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Kim, and letting us know about this. And certainly people are going to want to be aware of this. They have your website and things, I believe, at the bottom of the screen. And so, Kim, thank you so much for letting us know about this. She is the editor of Community Common Sense in San Juan Capistrano. Don't forget, this can happen in your town, too. We're going to talk more about that. We have James Herson coming up. He is a blast. You're going to love this guy. He's our go-to guy for what the left is up to in Hollywood. And since I'm reporting from California, I thought I'd bring that to you. You're listening to Focal Point. I'm filling in for Brian Fisher today. I'm Dr. Gina. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
We're in the financial business. We manage